Hello, everyone. Dan here from the Next Issue Podcast. On today's video, I'll be doing a review for Universal Monsters Creature from the Black Lagoon Lives #1. This is a new book from Image Skybound, continuing on this Universal Monsters line of books. We started with Dracula, so this specific issue is written by Dan Waters and Ram B, with art by Matthew Roberts, colors by Dave Stewart, letters by DC Hopkins. And let me tell you, I am very excited to finally get into this one. Uh, this was one of the books that I was asking for from the beginning when the Universal Monsters line started over at Image Skybound. So I'm very glad to not only see this book, but the creative team behind it is amazing. Dan Waters and Ramby are just doing some really cool stuff, whether it's over at the big two, or in their own independent stuff. Even at Image, they have a book that kind of goes hand in hand. So they each have their own book. Uh, I think it's called the six finger. I think one of them is called. We have reviews for that in the channel, so go check it out. But yeah, very excited for this one. So let me give you a quick synopsis, and then we'll talk more about this first issue. Acclaimed creators Dan Waters and Ram V, along with Matthew Roberts, rise from the depths for an all new epic. Years after the events of the original film, journalist Kate Marson hunts a notorious serial killer in the heart of the Amazon. Hot on the trail of this madman, she soon encounters an unexpected new threat. But is it friend or foe, or is it simply the creature from the Black Lagoon? Now, I will say this: I I don't think I've ever seen the original film, but that was not a deterrent for me to get into this book. If anything, it was just more encouragement to like dive deeper into this franchise. I think that Dan Waters and Ram V are telling a very compelling story from really the point of view of this protagonist that we're meeting. Right, we're seeing everything through Kate's point of view, and then the way they sprinkle in a little bit of the lore, the world building, even just the setting, and of course when we get glimpses of the creature, like they do that all very well, right? Of course, all that is along with the help of Matthew Roberts and Dave Stewart on the art. So let's pull up some of the preview pages for this issue. As you can see here, I love that we start with this um, this layout of somebody being drowned and choked, and we get to see who that is. We get to see that that is Kate having nightmares, and Kate is a very troubled individual. Not only do we have the kind of disheveled look right off the bat, the nightmares, the prescription that's empty, like all those little details. They're just very subtle ways to tell a story. We get this flashback to her producer, or her editor, not like wanting her to pursue the story. So we know that there's something there. We know that there's a little bit of trauma. And then we get this like just really picturesque, like amazing shot. I love how we get introduced to the setting. We're obviously in a part of the jungle. We also see here the little market, and of course, Kate a little out of place, and then just the little hints at the creature here. Of course, the locals would probably, I'm not gonna say believe, but definitely be interested in something like the creature and talking, and kind of using that as a selling tool for the tourists and stuff, right? Building the mythology of the creature that maybe haunts their land. So this was a very fun debut issue. I think that this is one, like, I just really love these type of books. I love that Skybound is doing like some really cool stuff with a lot of the franchises, right? Whether it's the Universal Monsters, the Energon stuff with Transformers and GI Joe, like they're just kind of nailing these adaptations. They're getting some really interesting creatives to work on them. So I'm very excited to see where this is going to go. Like I said, probably at the end of the series, I'll go back and watch the original film, as this is supposed to be a continuation of that. Also, will they be building a larger universal connected world? Who knows? I'm thinking yes, because it is comic books, but I'm probably thinking that seems to be very far off into the future. So for now, I'll just continue to enjoy the monthly books and hope that we get a really cool series. And another cool announcement after this. I think this was announced right as Dracula was wrapping up, so they definitely want to keep that momentum going. And I highly recommend you check this out, especially if you're a fan of the Universal monsters. I think you're really gonna dig this. It feels definitely updated, a little more contemporary, but also, like I said, I think it captures the essence of like some of those old Universal monster films. So hello, everyone. Daniel here from the Next Issue Podcast. On today's video, I'll be doing a review for Duke number 5. This is a new book from Image Skybound, all part of the Energon universe. Let's talk about the creatives before we get into this book. This book is written by Joshua Williamson with art by Tom Riley, Jordi Belair on colors, letters by Russ Wooten. We'll see some variant covers at the end of the video as well. This feels to me like the wrapping up of the first story here that we have for Duke. So in this issue, codename G.I. Joe is here. Duke has been betrayed by his allies and hunted by new enemies. The time has come for Duke to start fighting for something bigger than his country, bigger than he could ever have imagined. Get ready for the last page shocker no one will see coming. That was a pretty cool reveal. I think Josh Williamson is doing such a cool job with the GI Joe part of the universe. Um, there's enough hints to keep everything, connected overall in the larger scheme of things. But it's also like this is the book you're reading. This is the story you're gonna get. If you want to dive deeper into the universe, you can, but not reading like if you're not reading Cobra Commander, that doesn't affect the way you're enjoying Duke, right? So really cool setup. But if you are reading both books, then you'll see that there are threads that kind of connect them. There's definitely a character that shows up. You'll get to see it. Longtime fans probably already figured it out, but you'll get to see that when we get to look at some of the preview art. But I think the last thing I'll say about the story is that Joshua Williamson is very good at pacing because the story never feels rushed, never feels like we're getting. See, even my computer is giving it a thumbs up. It never feels rushed. It never feels like we're getting just an exposition dump. It all feels very organic, so that's really fun. And then yeah, so of course, all this being presented by Tom Riley's beautiful art, like I don't know what else you could ask for. So here we have a little bit of a preview. As you can see here, we have this robot, and if you are a keen eye observer of the, fan of the GI Joe universe, you'll probably recognize that this is a classic baddie, Destro, right? Which I don't know much about. I don't know. Like I said, I think I've mentioned before that outside of the live action films, I don't know much about GI Joe. But we do know that there's a Destro series coming out pretty soon, along with some other stuff. But at least Destro for now. So yeah, Tom Riley's really good at presenting this. I love the little flashbacks. Here we see a little flashback of the Transformers when Duke had an encounter with one of them, and of course, it seems like Destro is the one that knows all about robotics, and that's why Duke thought he might have been behind all this. Obviously, we know that he's not because we as the readers know what the Transformers are, but Duke doesn't know that. So, but yeah, really interesting reveals at the end of the book. Really cool ways to set up what's going to happen next, and I can't wait to see what else we have upcoming for the GI Joe universe and the Energon universe at large. So hello, everyone. Daniel here from the Next Issue Podcast. On today's video, I'll be doing a review for Spectrograph. This is a new book from Distillery. This is the first issue, written by James Tinian with art by Christian Ward, letters by Aditya Bidikar. Very, very exciting stuff here. Uh, I am a big fan of the creative team behind this book, whether it's James Tinian doing Batman or Christian Ward doing Batman. That's really funny because they both done Batman now. But here we are, Spectrograph, the book about ghosts, because of course, just based on the name, but it's way, way more about a lot of other stuff. So let's get into it. In this book, modern masters James Tinian and Christian Ward join forces to bring you their next horror classic, a ghost story steeped in the decay of a century of capitalism. For years, the mansion has sat strangely Nestled in the coastline, just a short drive from north of Los Angeles, rumors have a haunted rumors have haunted the place for years. Its owner, a titan of American industry, with a strange fascination for the occult and the paranormal. For decades, the richest men and women in the country have whispered to each other, trying to understand what he was building alone in that mansion for all those years. And now, finally, with his death, his estate is finally open for sale. They're eager to find out for themselves. Two of the most celebrated visionaries of the medium and multiple Eisner Award winners, they are taking on this task and invite you to the world of Spectrograph, a haunting cerebral horror novel that peels back the layers of America's opulent wealth and uncovers the rot underneath. But be careful, once you enter, you may not leave. Spectrograph is perfect for fans of the haunting of Hill House and The Conjuring. I wonder if that's the latest version of the haunting of Hill House. Um, interesting. I got a lot of well, not a lot. I got a little bit of 13 Ghost vibes. I think that just has a lot to do with the designs. Um, but I quite enjoy this book. It's definitely it's a big one. It's oversized. It's not oversized not only in like the format, but it's also about 54 pages. So you definitely get a lot, right? Most of these distillery books are about 3 issues, but you get, it's 3 double-sized issues pretty much. So you definitely get a lot of world building. You get a lot of exposition, a lot of it through the dialogue of some of the characters that we're introduced to. We get to see a few different time eras, if you will. And of course, we get a lot of like Christian Ward is so good at drawing both beautiful things and things that will just like give you chills in the night. There are a few images here that are quite spectral, quite haunting. Uh, I really like how Christian Ward presents his characters. It's not usually in a very straightforward manner. There's a lot of very subtle choices of how to display an image, right? All this combined with James Tynion's like macabre storytelling and the way that is usually like he's very good at world building. He's very good at including all the little details it's almost as if he's answering questions before you have a chance to ask them, which is really cool. All that combined with some really cool designs for the whole spectrograph, like the mansion and all the layouts and this machine, it's kind of hard to tell from just the first issue where exactly we're going with everything. But there's definitely a lot here presented. So let's take a look at some of the preview art and we'll talk more about this book. Like I mentioned, we do see a few different time eras. I believe all the preview pages are from the 1967's scene, and here we see like just we're introduced to like the worst of the worst. This is giving me a lot of like you know rich people having weird dark ceremony trope. We've kind of seen it in a few things, and just the look on the face of this guy. It is like Christian Ward super nails me not ever trusting a person like this. And then we see this just roaring fire behind them. So that's really cool. I love how they have chosen to, like, the whispers are unintelligible, like they're unreadable, right? You're not supposed to know what these people are saying, but just the fact that they're whispering really brings a lot to the page. Now I had to fit 3 pages up into this next screen, but you kind of get it. Like it even gives you the weird warping vibes, the colors, the weird designs. It just makes you feel very uneasy. Once again, we see more of the whispering and the expressions on these people's faces, the little that we can see from them, just really drives that point home. And this is all, like I mentioned, in the 1967 era. So we do have a time skip to a little too far in the future, where the book tonally changes, like the look and the feel of the story changes, but it's still full of high tension, just a different type. It's different type of stress that is shown in the pages, and we have even when it's just a simple conversation, that Tinian's written. Christian Ward is able to do that in a really cool back and forth type of way that you get a lot of action. There's a lot of like very small panels that help with the pacing. Like it feels rushed, right? Because you go from one little square to the next one to the next one. So yeah, all those things really come into play very well. And of course, the fact that this book is oversized just really adds to all that, right? Because you can fit so much more image in the page. So So, let me do some stuff behind the scenes. We're going to our friends over at Vault sent us a book to check out, uh, and it's so I asked the guys to read it because it's by a creator that I really like. We're going to talk about Dead Stalker, and then the more I looked into this book, I was like, oh, this is Monkey Bananas. Uh, so let's talk about the creative team before we get into this. Uh, this is Slash Presents Dead Stalker. Now, when I say Slash Presents, I do mean Slash from the Guns N' Roses, the guitarist. So that right. So that was the first thing where I was like, "What the fuck?" Uh, this is
Oh, I remember that. Okay.
there's a story by Slash and Steven Kostansky. I think they had maybe something to do with the original Dead Stalker. This is written by Tim Seeley with art by Jim Terry, colors by Kurt Michael Russell, letters by End World Design. Now, are you guys familiar with Dead Stalker, the character? I think it's a movie, if I'm not mistaken.
Really?
I
No.
think Jeff. Anything?
Yeah, I've heard of Deathstalker before. I'm not. This is the first book I've ever read. It
Okay.
does that. Yeah, I've seen it before though.
Well, then let me give you a little bit here. So, the cult classic warrior hero, Dead Stalker, burst into the comic scene from an all-star lineup of creators, including Slash from Guns N' Roses and writer director of FX Wizard Steven Kostansky. So, he's done Psycho Gorman, The Void. So, like, I'm sure that's stuff you guys are familiar with.
I
In
love
this
Psycho Gorman.
in this book, Dead Stalker finds himself once again caught between forces larger than himself, a virgin worshipping cult, a sorcerer hell bent on saving the world through mad science, and the pissed off army of a Brexan kingdom, not to mention his ex lover, Princess Evie. Monsters, magic, and mayhem abound. Can't a guy just swing his sword anymore? So, to me, this felt like, oh, Dead Stalker is just like Edgelord Conan or something, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, so, what did Clay? I'll go to you first. What did you think of the book?
I at first I was like, oh, we're gonna have like this serious kind of, maybe it's a Conan knockoff or something, but then it starts to get like funny and it drops like jokes and stuff in it.
Yeah,
And the if any of you have ever seen Heavy Metal, there's a story in there called Den of Earth where the character is narrated by John Candy. It gives me that kind of vibe. It's
yeah,
like a fantasy world with some comedy to it, like there's this element of this character who is super violent, but also like he's got a pretty funny attitude about shit.
yeah, yeah,
And also there's like, but that one thing I had a problem with, there's like a lot of weird animal death in here that is like supposed to be funny. That was like there's a part where his horse is speared and the horse kind of has this like reaction. It's like,
right.
man, maybe we don't need to see that. I mean, I know it's just it pulls you out of it for a second,
Mm.
but like all the other stuff is like hilarious. Like even though he has this one scene where he has, is it a rhinoceros that he kills to stop, so he shoves a sword up its ass and it goes down, and then the rider is impaled on the horns, which is one of the coolest bits in there. But it
Yeah.
was like, we got to shove a sword up a animal's ass.
Well, it's either that or Jim Carrey comes out of it.
But
All
yeah,
right.
it's got like that level of humor of Den of Earth, where this guy is like just trying to go around, be a barbarian, hook up with some chicks, and have a good time.
Right.
And these cults are not having it.
All right. Jeff, what
Yeah.
did you think of the book?
I had an interesting ride with the book because I thought initially it was part of the barbaric universe.
Right, me
They're
too.
Oh
vault
yeah.
also,
Dave?
and so I love the barbaric stuff, the
Yeah.
Michael Morrissey barbaric stuff. So I like got into it all excited, and I was like, not that I don't like Tim Seeley, I was just like, oh, this isn't that at all. So as I was reading it, my brain was like, this is not what I was expecting it was, even though it's kind of in the same vein.
Right.
Ironically, the thing that got me into it was when the horse got killed, like in such a graphic way. and then I was like, okay, well, I enjoy. I actually, honestly, to be honest, I enjoy Barbaric a little bit more, but I can see where they
Right.
kind of occupy different lanes though. So, but then when I got to the end and I saw that there is a Deathstalker versus Barbaric book at some point in the future that they've
Oh,
advertised.
nice.
Now I'm 100% in. I enjoyed the book. It's a little bit bawdier than like what Barbaric is, I
Yeah,
think.
yeah,
Oh yeah.
So it's not quite my cup of tea. Uh it wasn't quite as fun as I find Barbaric to be, but I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it.
yeah. I'm on the same boat as Jeff, pretty much. Like, there's a lot of aspects of the book that I think like, oh, this is funny, or like this is gross and gnarly, and I mean, like I said, I saw Team Silly's name and I was like, okay, we're in for a ride, right?
Yeah.
Um, there's a lot of dong in this book that I was not
This is
expecting.
dong heavy. This is so dong
If
heavy.
you thought Watchmen had a lot of dong, you haven't read Dead Stalker. That should be
There's
the
even
full
a
quote.
panel.
That
Are
should
you
be the
talking about the
quote.
one?
That should be the quote for us from the book. More
Yeah.
dong than Watchmen. Um,
Oh
yeah,
yeah, because there's like one panel where like he's going to fight the big bad, and of course the guy's naked, and he looks over and he sees, and they do a full panel of the dong,
yeah.
and then they
So
go back to him, and he does
It's
kind of the
it's really funny.
Hank
Like,
Hill of like,
yeah. So I
I
do
don't
have
want
some
to
preview art here, and
hey,
I had to censor part of it for
part of it.
YouTube. Well, just because I picked the pages that didn't have as much.
Yeah.
Although I guess we do see some uh like creature butt.
some
But
light
yeah,
decapitation.
yeah. Um, I like his friend a lot.
Yeah.
Very unfortunate, but yeah, like overall the art really fits the tone of the story. I think it's not
Mhm.
my favorite stuff either. Like, it does look at some point it's like, oh man, that's a lot. Like, we're dealing with a lot. And this is sometimes the reason that I don't get through a full heavy metal magazine
Oh,
in the
really?
same way,
Yeah.
because I'm
Yeah.
like, it can be a lot at once. This book also, I didn't expect it to be so long. It's oversized for sure.
Yeah.
But it gives you a lot of story. Dead Stalker is not like a character that I don't think you're supposed to like really like as much. He's
No.
just like out on his own, right? Him and his sword, like that's his only true friend.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was. But there's some really cool visuals. Like, I picked up this page here. Like,
The violence is over the
yeah,
top fun because it is just him going crazy.
yeah. Creature design, the world building, like it's there. I know there's definitely a big audience for this. Like I said, this isn't fully this stuff that I like to follow, but I definitely thought I had a good time with the book as well. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
I do. There is a moment too where like he meets a guy where they're about to battle, and the guy like admires his sword, and they kind of do fist bumps, which is probably my favorite scene
yeah,
in there, just because it's like it takes that moment and encapsulates their friendship in just like 6 panels.
yeah,
Perfect storytelling.
yeah. So all right. Anything else you guys want to say about Death Stalker?
Like I said, I compared a lot to Den of Earth, but that's like, oh my God, Richard Corbin stuff. And
Okay,
that's so like high level humor and art that like, if you've never read Den of Earth, I put it in the show notes. There's a link to a Dark Horse book out there.
nice.
Nice.
Okay,
Barbarians are back, baby.
that's right. Yeah, yeah. We got
Funny and
Josh been
violent.
reading over the Conan books over at Titan, and so all right, well, let me end this. So thanks to Walt for sending this to us. Really appreciate it. Every time we get to see comics and events. And I'll end this by showing some really cool variant covers.